There's never a perfect time in life to have a family, to relocate, to travel, to buy a new car, to buy a new house, to look for a job. There's never a right and perfect time because perfect does not exist. So if you are waiting for the perfect time, if you're waiting until may never come. So why not start with what you do know in the time you do have, which is now? Hello, my friends. Welcome to episode number 10. I wanted to talk to you today about a few things that I've been seeing. I love talking about things that as um, future clients or potential clients um, come, come up against that I get to address in the podcast. And so today I wanted to talk about waiting until. Now we are just in the beginning of November. And as we're getting around or towards the end of the year, very close to the end of the year, we're like less than 60 days away. People start to say, I'm going to wait until, right? And so I've been hearing this a lot lately, especially now that we're like, again, less than 60 days away from the new year. I hear people say, I'm going to wait until the new year to start looking for a job. I'm going to wait until I complete my certification. I'm going to wait until my child goes off to daycare. I'm going to wait until my kids go off to school. I'm going to wait until my manager retires. I'm going to wait until I get another degree. So these are just a few examples of what I've heard more recently in the past 10 to 15 days that brought me to have a conversation with you all about waiting until. Okay. So I had a conversation with two particular people. One who mentioned that they wanted to get into a managerial role. So this would be their second managerial role at the company that they're currently in. And when I asked them, or I'm sorry, they have the desire to enter into a managerial role at their current employer. And I said, well, what's the logical next step? Like, what do you think that you have to do in order to, be the ideal candidate for the role, in order to land the role, etc. And the person expressed to me that they had to wait until their manager retired, which was going to be in 2 to 5 years. Okay. The next person that I ended up talking to was someone who was already in a leadership role, very high performing person, and they were in a VP role, and they wanted to look into getting a senior VP role. And I asked the same question. What do you think the next logical step is? What do you think you needed to do? And the person said that they needed to wait about 3 years because life is busy in life. What else did they say? Work was busy right now. So right now wouldn't be the best time. Their kids are busy. Like it's just not a convenient time, air quote is what they said. It's not a convenient time, and that things should calm down within the next 2 to 3 years. And so I bring to you today and want to challenge you all that if I have to wait until thinking, then I challenge you to consider or reconsider waiting until. Now, just to be honest, I don't think that there's ever a perfect time to do anything. There's never a perfect time in life to have a family, to relocate, to travel, to buy a new car, to buy a new house, to look for a job. There's never a right and perfect time because perfect does not exist. So if you are waiting for the perfect time, if you're waiting until may never come. So why not start with what you do know and the time you do have, which is now? See, when we wait until, especially when I think about it from our career aspect, I'm wondering if we're waiting until that really has nothing to do with our managers retiring, or really has nothing to do with how busy we are at home or at work. I wonder if it's really around what we think and believe about ourselves. Do we think we're ready for the next position, the next promotion, the next job title? And because we don't think we're ready, we're waiting until we get more experience. We're waiting until some of these things happen because we think that once, time passes by, then we'll be ready. But this is the thing. You're never going to be fully ready, so you might as well go after it now. Okay. And so I challenged both people and I asked them questions. And so I'm going to ask you a question as well. Do you really think that it takes you 3, 4, 5, or 10 years to really reach the next level in your career? And again, I'm going to ask you the same question. And just take a moment to think about it. Do you really think that it's going to take you that long to reach the pinnacle of your career? And I challenge you because I've had clients who have started at roles and positions, and in 3 months, and 6 months, and 9 months, in less than a year, they were promoted. And they too thought it was going to have to take time, or they were going to have to wait until something happened. But like I mentioned to the person now who is my client, waiting until your manager retires doesn't guarantee you the position, especially if you have not had the conversation with your manager, or you're saying like your manager is busy working on their career, your manager is busy, you've put time on their calendar to discuss succession planning, and that has been ignored. If these things are happening, do you think, and you clearly said, we're putting time on your calendar to discuss succession planning so that in the next 2 to 3 years, if you're going to be leaving, I want to be, or I am the next ideal person for the role, and they're ignoring that, or they're, trying to um, find ways to go around that conversation, then you have to look at what is being presented in front of you. Are you really the ideal candidate? Are you really the person who they want to go into that role? And if you're like your manager is busy managing and they're busy focusing on their careers and they don't have time to have a conversation with you about your career, it's not your manager's fault. It is your responsibility to be in the driver's seat of your career. No one else can navigate your career better than you. Again, no one can navigate your career better than you. No one can tell you what is best for you in your career better than you. You may have a coach, you may have a mentor, you may have people who can give you insight into things that you may not see, but you are the only person who really knows the ins and outs of the organization that you work in, who knows your manager, who really knows what's going on, who can make that decision. And so when someone says to me, I am the next person for this role, however, I'm not getting the support to have the conversations around that. One, yes, it could be the timing, or are you the right person? Either way, you don't need to wait until something happens for you to decide that you want to do something more, something better for your career. And that may mean leaving, may, not in all cases. But if you're trying to have a conversation with someone and they're not trying to have that conversation back with you, then you need to be open to some other options. Or have you not set yourself up to be the right or next ideal candidate or manager for the particular role? And so that is one instance. The second instance, when someone tells me that they're waiting on business to slow down, they're waiting on their life to slow down. When will life slow down? Has life ever slowed down? And because some aspects of our lives slow down, some other aspects of our life tend to speed up. So there may never be a perfect time. And so when this individual mentioned it to me, they came to me from the experience of another person. They mentioned that the person who, two other people who are in the senior VP role, were telling them how overwhelmed they are, how stressful it can be, and how time consuming, and that they wish that would have waited until their lives calmed down and until their children went off to college, which was going to be whatever time period that was. So this person came to me basing their fears, I'm going to call it, about the role from someone else's experience. And they came up with the, I'm not going to call it an excuse, but the circumstances that life has to calm down before I can take on the role that is my ideal career, which is how I want to spend the last 10 to 15 years of my career. Like, this is the pinnacle of my career. This is what I've been working so hard to do. And I'm going to wait 3 years until I decide to do it. And I took a pause there because I want you to hear how that sounds. And I'm glad that they were like, oh my gosh, I hear how that sounds. Because this is the thing, someone else's life circumstances are not your circumstances. So basing things off of what someone else experienced isn't your experience. Yes, you have children who are in school and that you want to be at all the football games, all the basketball games, all the soccer games. I understand that. That to me is putting boundaries around your work and having a conversation to say, hey, at 4 o'clock every day I leave, or at 4 o'clock on these days I leave because I'm not missing my son's basketball game or my daughter's volleyball game. But that doesn't mean that you have to put your career on hold in order to do so. And so in this situation and circumstance, we just decided together, or she decided, and I just, I'm coaching her. And she was like, you know what? My son's 17. I'm just going to buy him a car so that he can drive himself to practice and he can drive himself to games. And then I can just show up when I show up. And maybe that wasn't that person's circumstance. So they were not in a situation where their kid could drive to school yet. But that's what I'm saying. Like, we cannot allow other people's situations and circumstances to impact how we decide to navigate our careers. And so when we talk about life is busy at home, you have to get clear on what does busy at home really mean? Like, for some of us, busy at homes means we're having to cook and we're cleaning and we're shuttling the kids everywhere. And so you may need to look at some additional support. Maybe that is a cleaning service that comes by and picks up your cleaning, your dry cleaning or your laundry, and they do it for you. Maybe that is having a cleaning service that comes by twice a week to clean for you. Maybe that is using a home delivery service for your meals. Maybe that means having someone do what is it, Thrive Cart? I think that's what it's called. The cart, Instacart. And they select food for you, certain foods, of course, because I'm like, I have to pick out certain foods of my own. But maybe you're looking and getting support. And maybe at that particular time for that person, support just wasn't an option. But if it's an option for you, then you need to look at other support. Maybe you have a spouse or a significant other who can take the kids to practice and pick the kids up. Maybe you have a village around you who's willing to support you and make sure that kids get to games and they get to do all the other things because they understand and they know how important this part of your career is to you. So again, we cannot allow circumstances from other people to be part of the what holds us back and what makes us think that we need to wait until, because sometimes until doesn't happen. And I'm always asking the question, how bad do you want it? If this is the, when you think about the role, and I just started to smile, when you think about the role that you are waiting until to do, when you think about it, like, how does that make you feel? Like, if you get that excitement about it, then is it really something that you want to wait 3, 4, 5, 10 years to do? Like, if it's really that important to you, do you have to wait? Now, we're just talking about careers in this aspect, but ask yourself that about anything. Like if this is if the house you wanted went up for sale and you drive past this house every day, you're like, "Oh my gosh, would just wish that house went up for sale." And it goes up for sale. Are you going to say, "Oh, well, I was looking at to do it in 3 to 5 years, so since it's now, I'm just oh well, I miss out." Or are you really like, you know what? I'm going to take the leap and I'm going to put an offer in. So sometimes we have to think about, what are our desires? And is it worth us putting our names in a hat and going forward with it? See, I know that we get caught up into so many different things and we're always waiting. But if your long-term goal is right in front of you now, why wait? Because, see, what I know for sure is that tomorrow is not promised. And while you're waiting, life is passing you by. And so these may be getting into this new role, may be the thing that sets your family up for success. If you decided to go for that role now instead of waiting 3 years, that could be the determining factor of you being able to save for a down payment on your home 3 years earlier than if you waited in 3 years. That 5 year period that you're waiting for your kids to go off to school, or you're waiting to get the degree, or you're waiting to get the certification, or you're waiting on whatever to happen, could be the difference between you retiring early because you're able to save more money and you're able to build the wealth for your 401k so you can retire early, so you can take the vacations that you want to take, so that you can buy the dream car that you want to drive, so that you can save up for your kids' college education, so that you can help your kids pay for the wedding, so that you can help them with the down payment on their first home. So sometimes when we're waiting, so many other factors are in play that have nothing to do with us. Now, life circumstances do happen, and maybe for you now might not be the time, but what if now is the time? So, if you're asking yourself, or if you're telling yourself that you're waiting until, ask yourself, what are you waiting until happens? What are you waiting to happen? If you're waiting until someone taps you on the shoulder, I guarantee you that's not going to happen. You have to advocate for yourself. And so this is possible and it is available to you. But if you're waiting, it may never happen. Like if you're waiting on your manager to tell you and give you their job, what if they decide to stay 5 more years? Now what? What if there are so many circumstances and other things that come into play to the minute you decide that you can breathe and now is the right time, something else happens and you're like, oh, well, now isn't the right time. See there, I knew it wasn't the right time. If it was the right time, it would have happened. No, just like everything else, if we want it, we make time for it. You can make time to be in whatever role and whatever capacity you want to. You don't have to wait till someone retires. You don't have to wait till your life gets less complicated, if that is a thing. You don't have to wait till life stops lifing. You don't have to wait till things start to add up because guess what? They may never add up. And that's okay. Know that you can do it regardless of the situation and the circumstances in front of you. Okay? So that's how I'm going to wrap up today's conversation. I hope that you find this helpful. And again, if you're waiting until something happens, wait no longer. Don't wait until the clock strikes January 1, 2024 to start your job search. Start your job search today. Don't wait until January to have the conversation with your manager. Have that conversation and put that time in your calendar today. And if having that conversation with them isn't enough, maybe you need to do a skip level and have a conversation with their manager. And so that you know now that you've had the conversation and now you can make the best next step for you. All right. So go out here, quit waiting until, and do it now. I will talk to you on the next episode.